Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This week, we're diving into a topic that, if I'm being honest, was the catalyst that got me into menstrual cycle awareness and got me into being curious about my body. What we're going to learn today, or what we're going to discuss and explore today, is really a topic that it was the first time when I heard it that it got me engaged in my body in a new way that was beyond the physical. It is what helped illuminate what was happening on an energetic, maybe level, more of a spiritual level, you can say, a sacred level. It was the teachings of the archetypes of the cycle. And this work in particular, I first learned from Miranda Gray. And when I was introduced to it with Miranda Gray, it was in her training to become a moon mother. And the essence of how she approaches the cycle archetypes is really about how we can awaken the divine feminine, how we can bring life and awareness to the feminine energy in us, and how we can begin to heal as well as clear and as well as release what we need to around what we're holding in these pockets of time where this archetype is really present in our life. So just like the 4 seasons of the cycle and the 4 phases of the cycle, so our inner spring, which is our follicular phase, our inner summer, which is our ovulation, our inner fall, which is our luteal, and our inner winter, which is our menstruation. We also have an archetype that is really representative of the energy in each of these 4 phases. So our 4 archetypes are the maiden, the mother, or you could say the empress, the wild woman or the enchantress, and the wise woman, or also known as the crone. And why these 4 archetypes was so potent and powerful for me is that it kind of, when I heard about it, when I learned about it in becoming a moon mother and becoming trained in womb blessing attunements and womb healing practices, and a little bit more of like this, I don't want to label it as shamanic, but it's kind of has like that shamanic feel to it. I'm not trained in womb shamanism by no means, but what Miranda was coaching and teaching really does have that kind of shamanic teaching felt sense to it. And what I loved about this is when she was describing how we can awaken the feminine within us, when we can awaken the feminine in our cycle, and we can start to look at both the joys and the shadows that happen in each of these 4 phases, we can really see this life form, this way of living, this way of being, this way of existing through the lens of these 4 archetypes, or these 4, well, let's call them 4 archetypes. You can use different names for each of the phases. So let's start with the inner spring. The inner spring, also known as our follicular phase, it's the time after our bleed, but before our ovulation. This is representative of the maiden energy, which I've also heard it called the virgin energy, right? And I personally resonate more with the maiden energy, which is why I use that term. But the maiden energy is, if you can imagine, like maybe even close your eyes to absorb this kind of felt sense of this identity, is the maiden is somebody who is really free will. She's curious about life. She wants to experience, she wants to taste, she wants to touch, she just wants to explore, and she sees no boundaries. She feels like life is limitless. This is really representative of not only our follicular phase, but of our life cycle phase from our first bleed until our mid-20s, perhaps. So this energy is really representative of those earlier years where we are heightened in the experience. We are curious. We want to explore. We are really young and we are really unaware. We haven't had the life lessons to ground us yet. And there's something really beautiful when you think about your follicular phase, this time after those dark days of bleeding, but before that ovulation time, where you can really kind of feel the springiness in your body, where you feel like this pulsation of perhaps play, perhaps exploration, but just also not knowing the limitations. Right now, as I'm recording this, I'm actually in my maiden phase, my follicular phase of my cycle. And today, in one of my coaching calls with one of my coaches, she was asking for my words, and I was like, abundance, and like I want to plan, like I just want to plan the whole month. Like there's this urgency in me to get as much packed in as possible, and just really like this uprising excitement that kind of happened in my body. And that's what the maiden is all about. Then we can move into our inner summer, our ovulation, which is representative of the archetype of the mother, or you can also look at it as the empress. A lot of people don't really resonate with the word mother, especially if you're somebody who doesn't have children or really doesn't want to have children. It might be hard for you to kind of visualize that. But the energy behind the word mother and the energy behind empress are very similar. What these archetypes are asking for representation is identical. And so if you think of the mother or the empress, they're the people, they're the caretakers of a larger body of people, whether that be a community, whether that be a household, but they're very observant, and they're very much on deliverables, and they're very much on caregiving and hearing and being problem solvers. They're the people that, are space holders. They're the people that really are there to, how do I want to put this? They are the people that are just rooted enough to kind of be that willow tree that can sway, right? That can be responsive to people's needs, but yet can also be really wise and wise in a sense, not like the wise woman, but like can be of that helper mode, I guess would be a better way to say it, right? They're more empathetic. They're more like they've got that energy, that vessel of energy to be able to serve is probably the way I'm trying to describe it. And this is really representative of our ovulation, when we are people who want to be seen, we want to be heard, like we have all these hormones in us that are pulsating, that are saying, look at me, I am here. And you are usually in your most outgoing state during ovulation. And that's what the mother energy is. It's similar to the maiden energy, but it has a little bit more wisdom than the maiden has. It has a little bit more rootedness and groundedness than the there is no limits maiden. So this is a little bit different, but yet somewhat similar. And then I think where this work really started to resonate for me, and I think it resonates for a lot of women, is when we move into the inner fall or the luteal phase, which is the archetype of the enchantress or the wild woman. When we look at the life cycle of a woman as well, this is kind of that perimenopause phase. This is when you're in your 40s, when you are probably established in your career or established in designing your life, and you're no longer trying to prove yourself to anybody. The enchantress, and the way I always see the enchantress is kind of like that woman who is in the midst of the forest and is picking mushrooms and really does not care about being the center of attention. She really does not care about interacting with other people. She really just wants to be with herself, with her own creativity, with her own craft. She knows who she is. She knows what she has to do. She still feels responsible, but she really is that person that exists for just herself. And another way to look at it is the wild woman. And when we look at the wild woman, I don't mean like the aggressive, rageful, losing our mind like we kind of feel at PMS time, which maybe can be very representative as well. But it's more of that wild woman is that person who just does not care, right? Like she will dance naked around a fire in the full moon. She will, just let her true essence pour through her pores and never really feel that vulnerability that maybe we feel in the mother or the maiden, that more of that sensitivity around being seen. When we're in this phase, we really don't care if we're seen. We just are in it for us. We're not in it for other people. And so when you look at that luteal phase of your cycle, when you really are in this place of maybe sometimes feeling rageful, sometimes feeling exhausted and worn out, it's really your body's way of saying, hey, have you done anything for yourself lately? Like, are you giving all your energy to everybody else? Are you still trying to pretend that you're that mother energy? And can we come back and just be by ourselves? Can we come back and be in our craft? Can we come back and be in our creativity? Can we come back into really being a full expression of who we are and letting go of that vulnerability of what others might think? And when we look in our life cycle of this being really representative of our perimenopause phase, like this is the time where we know that we have the education, or we know that we have the skill set, or we know that we've made our name for ourselves in our career. Whether that it might be your career or it could be your family life or whatever it might be, but you really are in this essence of knowing who you are and really being okay with saying, this is who I am, take it or leave it. And then the last archetype is the wise woman or the crone. And this is representative of our menstruation, but also really representative of, I like to think, post-menopause. However, Jane Hardwick Collins, who's someone who's really done a lot of work in this as well, she always says it's after your 70s and beyond, right? Like it's kind of that last quarter of your life, representative energy. Miranda Gray, on the other hand, she really portrays the picture, at least what I've picked up from her teachings, is that this is that energy of, post-menopause, when we're in those darker years and darker years by meaning that we're no longer bleeding. We are no longer trying to create a family. We're no longer trying to create a career. We're no longer trying to achieve. The wise woman is just that. She is that figure or that archetype that's in that rocking chair and is watching the world from stillness, watching how things have evolved, watching growth and change, but she's not trying to be the change maker. She's really in this state of pause, which I think is so important for us as women to remember, because when we're bleeding, rarely do we allow ourselves to be in this state of pause. You've probably heard a lot around when you're bleeding, rest more, right? Take that time to rest because your body's doing lots of work. I know I'm bad for saying that all the time. But really, it's not just about like stopping life. I know a lot of women struggle when you say rest during your bleed days, but it's not about doing nothing. It's about making time and making a safe container where you can be really reflective, where you can be introspective on your life, where you can be reflective and ask those questions sometimes about what it is that you need direction on. It's that time where we push less and we just move through life with a little bit more ease. Even if you think of like the wise woman, it's not that she's immobile. It's not that she can't move about. It's not that she, can't babysit the kids, the grandkids. It's not that she can't go out and garden. It's not that she can't do these things. She's very much still a human, living a human experience. But her beauty and what she has to offer is that she does it with ease. She doesn't do it in a panic. She doesn't race. She doesn't try to outperform. She just is really present, aware, and easeful in life. And our period is such a beautiful time for us to really tap into this energy sometimes of the wise woman. And just asking our wise woman, asking ourselves during our bleed days, what is it that I need to know as I move into this next cycle? What is it that's not aligned in my life? What is it that's not nourishing me that I need to release? Our bleed is a time for us to release, and the wise woman can be such a potent and powerful archetype for us to tap into, to start to explore what it is that we need to let go and release. So these 4 archetypes, when I first heard them, I could feel them in my system. And I hope that as you hear this and as we really quickly ran through them, there's so much more I could share about the archetypes. But as we kind of just explore the generalization of these 4 cycle archetypes, I hope that you can kind of feel that sense. Wherever you are in your cycle right now, just pause and go, okay, I'm on day, whatever the day might be. So that's this phase of my cycle. Can I kind of feel the energy of that archetype? If I really think about it, do I kind of feel like a maiden energy right now? Or do I kind of feel like I'm that empress energy? Or do I kind of feel like I am that wild enchantress woman? Or do I feel like I need to embrace the wise woman a little bit more, the crone? And I think that when we tap into this, it just gives us this other layer. And this is why I call it almost like our feminine spiritual practice, or that these teachings provide that spiritual practice of going a little bit deeper beyond into the imagination, into the pretend, into the illusions, into the symbolism of what it feels like to be within our own energy, our own feminine landscape. And so Miranda Gray, she teaches these as a way for us to tap in as a tool, especially when we're working with clients to do womb blessing attunements, to awaken these 4, to kind of go in energetically. A womb blessing attunement, in case if you've never experienced one, it is an energetic treatment, kind of like a craniosacral therapy treatment or a Reiki treatment, or it is body work, but working on the energetic body, working on the deep inner body. And so this work of the womb blessing attunement is just that. Can we bring awareness into these 4 archetypes? And can we clear stories or ancestral trauma or holding patterns that we might be holding in one or more of these archetypes? And as we create this experience, or as myself as a practitioner that's creating this experience of releasing, maybe helping the body to release some of these stories and to create more spaciousness, can we create a blessing for existence of these 4 archetypes? Can we create a blessing and an awareness of the potency and the powerfulness that these 4 archetypes bring into our system, and how they really do awaken us? This practice of the womb blessing attunement is awakening the feminine within us, the feminine energy, the energy of the cycle. It is bringing the awareness to these 4 archetypes so that way we can really allow their potency to come through even more vibrantly in our cycle. So that way, in the most subtle ways, each cycle, we're living a little bit more in alignment with what these archetypes are calling upon us and calling upon our next step or our next cycle in life through, right? Each cycle is a building point for the next cycle that's going to continue to cycle all the way until we die. And so each cycle is an opportunity for us to tap into these 4 different versions of ourselves, these 4 different archetypes within us that demand different things, that heal in different ways, that bring a new beautiful awareness to why, as women, our cycle is our potent superpower, right? Why being cyclical is so goddamn amazing, because there is so much magic to be had when we can feel the vibrancy of these 4 women, when we can make place for acceptance of all 4 versions of ourselves. Can we make acceptance for the place of our maiden, for our mother, for our enchantress, for our wise woman? Can we hold space for them? And that may seem simple enough, but you'd be amazed that when you start to tap into these archetypes and these felt senses in your body, you might start to notice throughout your cycle of like, ooh, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm really quite uncomfortable here. And that's when we can start to go in those deeper layers, where this is where the womb blessing attunement and the womb healing sessions can really help. But you can also go into your own inquiry of what am I storing in this part of my life cycle that's repeating itself in an energetic way in my monthly cycle, right? So like, for example, for me, my maiden energy, it historically has not been comfortable. I've definitely done some massive healing around myself and the maiden, but I think a lot of us women sometimes might have had some trauma stored from our maiden years, from that part of our life cycle when we were just coming into our puberty, our early teens, maybe our university self, early 20s, trying to like find the job, trying to find how to live, survive. There's a little bit of trauma there. And I think it's, for myself, it was definitely a fear of setting boundaries. There was definitely a fear of conformity, of not conforming, I should say. A perfectionist, a failure, all these things. And it's really interesting to watch that now that I've created this awareness, how these stories start to pop in a little bit in my inner spring, in my inner follicular phase, when I'm starting to experience it. And so now that I've had some awareness around it, I've been able to heal some of those perfection tendencies, some of those expectations I create for myself, some of those visibility issues that I've had, some of those, lot of our wounds that we carry from, from just being a woman, those deep inner wounds. And so, yeah, I share this with you as a way to get curious of just checking in of where you are in your cycle. Can you feel that archetype? And then just curiously, each week when you move into the next phase, ask yourself, I've moved into this phase now. This is the archetypes here. How can I really embody that archetype? How can I live her energy? How can I live her passion? How can I be a clearer version of her? And it helps teach us, I think, at least it's helped teach me of how to really allow myself to ebb and flow and to be cyclical, to be 4 variations of myself and to rinse and repeat those 4 variations. And it gets fun and it's playful. And it's a way to get out of the clinicalness of our cycle, This is a great tool for us to get more into the felt sense, more into the spiritual practices of being feminine energy, being part of these archetypes. So I hope that you love them as much as I do, because like I said, it was learning this from Miranda Gray back in, I want to say it was 2017, that my mind was so blown that I was like, I gotta learn more. I gotta do more. And since then, I've trained multiple times with Miranda. I've done all of her trainings. I went into the priestess training, the year-long priestess course, which I touched a little bit on last week when I was talking with Lauren with the Wild Rose Apothecary. So yeah, it's been this light that's kind of catalyzed or pushed me into how can I go deeper? And the more I've gotten deeper, the more it's led me on to different trainings. And, from someone who's never really felt, I want to say safe. Let's use the word safe. I don't think I've ever used that word before when thinking about this. It's interesting that one came up for me. Feeling safe about talking about spirituality, because spirituality has always kind of felt unsafe for me. I felt a little lost in it. I felt a little confused by it. I felt a little disconnection, like, where do I belong in spiritual practices? Because I wasn't raised in a religious home. So I didn't know. There was always this curiosity of, what would that look like? Can I go there? And I've always been a little lost. I've done, in university, I did a few courses on religion because I was just so curious of world religions. What is religion? What does it mean? And it's really quite curious that the menstrual cycle has become this spiritual practice. And I'm not saying that spiritual and religion are the same. That's not what I'm saying at all. For me, I do not associate with a religion because I haven't found one that really yet kind of calls to me. But I do resonate with spirituality, of going on these deep quests, of asking these questions, of exploring energy, of exploring, trusting in something outside of myself. And that to me is what the archetypes are. It's like feminine spirituality where I can just start to explore through symbolism, through sacred teachings, through something that's outside of myself. So anyways, I don't know why I went on that little tangent. It felt like it had to come out. It came out. So I hope that is all helpful, relating it to everybody. But even if you're somebody who is religious or not religious, or somebody who believes in spirituality or feels very disconnected from spirituality, tap into the cycle archetypes. See how that lands in you and see what awakens within you when you start to explore your menstrual cycle more from this symbolic lens, and see how it might deepen a relationship with yourself. Friends, have you had a chance to download my new free ebook? Maybe it's not you. The Truth on PMS and How You Can Take Back Control of Your Cycle is now available. This is truly a book that I think needs to be in the hands of every woman who struggles with the second half of their menstrual cycle. So if this is you, click on the link in the show notes and download your free copy today. And remember to subscribe to this podcast and share a review if you loved this episode. Until next time, remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living.